there, welcome. My name is Alonda Carter and I am the Recovering Hunbot. I create anti-MLM videos, that's anti-multi-level marketing, and I also examine white-collar crime and some true crime. Basically, I like to tell the stories related to scammy things and the people involved. I'm not on the screen because, once again, I'm telling the story that we recently moved in. It's just going to take time to set up the space, probably several months, and now that we have custody of two teenage boys, our focus is on their needs. So today I am going to examine a cold case here in Texas. This video is about Natasha Atchely and what happened to her in 1992. Unfortunately, the person responsible for ending her life remains a mystery. Hopefully, by covering this case, someone may recall details that were not provided to law enforcement. The sources used will be linked in the description. And now let's get into what we know and what we think we know about what happened to Natasha.
This week, we're shining a spotlight on cold cases, hoping to finally get justice for the victims' families. Tonight, we're talking about Natasha Atchely, a cheerleader who was brutally murdered 25 years ago. But are the people who know what happened covering up small towns' dark secrets? Grace White, looking for the missing pieces that could help investigators finally solve the case.
Texas has many small towns. Roughly 74 miles or so north of Houston is Livingston, Texas. It is the county seat of Polk County, which sits in the middle of the Big Thicket Forest. In 2010, the population of Livingston was a little over 5,000. Nearby, West Livingston, home of Allen B. Plensky Unit, a state prison, has been Texas's death row since 1999. The largest employers for Livingston include the prison and lumber companies. Polk County is also home of the oldest Indian reservation and home to the Alabama Coshada tribe. The second largest lake in the state, Lake Livingston, has over 450 miles of shoreline. While researching the area, I did come across people who say the local police departments in this area of Texas are crooked. Natasha Atchely was born May 11, 1972, to her mother Karen Woodward and father Lloyd Nolan Atchley in Livingston, Texas. As a child, Natasha suffered several emotional blows. Her parents divorced, and then in 1980 her father was killed at the age of 32 when she was just 8 years old. Having lost my father when I was 10, I know firsthand what a blow that really is. Lloyd had remarried, and it is reported that some sort of squabble broke out between him, his then wife, Patricia Walters Atchley, and her brother Keith Walters, and Lloyd while they had been at a local club in Hardin County. Allegedly, Lloyd was left behind and later caught up with his wife and her brother. Lloyd stabbed Keith in the leg and then stabbed Patricia in the chest. Her brother then grabbed a .32 caliber and shot Lloyd. No charges were filed against Patricia or her brother. Her grandparents on her father's side apparently were well off, as it is said they provided for Natasha financially. However, even if she had all of her needs met and lived in a nice home, Natasha still had suffered early trauma. Natasha also was their only granddaughter. It's possible that, people could have considered her to be a bit spoiled. The thing is, losing a parent at a young age has a very profound impact on you. There is a sense of loss that hangs over you throughout your life. At the time of her death, Natasha was 5'6" tall and weighed around 145 pounds. Natasha's mother hoped to find out exactly what happened and who was responsible for her daughter's death. Sadly, when Karen passed due to cancer in 2002, she never was able to have Natasha's murder resolved. Karen, though, lived with the loss of her daughter, and her heart ached deeply. Karen wrote hundreds, if not thousands, of letters to a local paper after Natasha's death. It is said she conducted her own investigation because she wanted the issue resolved. Natasha, or what her best friend called her, Tosh, is said to have been a firecracker. According to her best friend, you either loved her or hated her.
There was something about Natasha.
Popular, pretty.
You just either loved her or you hated her.
I think we all have someone like that in our life. As a teenager, Natasha had a mischievous nature, as do most teens. In one story, she snuck out of her home to meet friends and then to cruise the Strip in Livingston. She was caught, but never gave up her friends. Instead, she just said she needed some alone time and went and sat on the golf course. As a small town girl, Natasha did what kids do in small towns: hang out with friends and go to parties. These parties, though, often had a mix of alcohol and drugs. I don't know about you, but that sounds very similar to my years as a teenager. She is said to have been promiscuous, loved to party, drink, and get high. But that is not all that Natasha was. She was not just a party girl. She was a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, a cousin, and a friend. She was more than her reputation of having a good time. Natasha grew up in Livingston and attended Livingston High School, but didn't graduate from there. She moved to Odessa to live with her uncle during her senior year. She graduated from Odessa Permian High in 1990. After graduating high school, Natasha got an apartment with some roommates in College Station, home of Texas A&M University. She attended Blinn College, located in Brenham, Texas, home of the best ice cream in the country, Bluebell. Many students who attain a 2-year degree from Blinn transfer to a 4-year college or university, such as Texas A&M or the University of Texas. Natasha never had the chance to complete her education at Blinn and decide if she even wanted to get a 4-year degree. Natasha is said to have been the kind of girl who liked to have fun but was a very loyal friend. For example, one of her very good friends found out that she was pregnant, and Natasha predicted the baby would be a boy. And she was right, but sadly never got to see her friend's baby, nor was she able to uphold her promise that she would be there to help her friend when the baby arrived. Roughly 2 weeks before her life ended, Natasha called her friend and said she would be coming to Livingston to attend some birthday parties. Saturday, May 2nd, 1992, Natasha was back home in Livingston and went to at least one party. And this party was located in another small town called Shepherd, which is located in San Jacinto County. The exact events of the night and who Natasha saw is unclear. I'm not going to specify who was where because I don't have solid evidence, and it's possible that some of what is available may be inaccurate. Let's just say if you saw Natasha that night, you know who you are, and you know who was there, and it is likely you witnessed what happened. Given that those who attended were quite young, I am sure there was plenty of alcohol and a variety of drugs present. That would not be a stunning kind of a thing given the age group, you know? Back in the early 90s, a drug that went by the street name ecstasy was very popular. The drug became popular actually in the nightclub scene. I never took this drug, but I do remember going to clubs and people would hold up their hands, crossing 2 fingers to form an X, indicating that they had taken ecstasy. Ecstasy lowers your inhibitions and produces a euphoria, and then it distorts your sensory perceptions. You begin to feel the effects about 45 minutes after taking it. The dose peaks 15 to 30 minutes after you begin to feel the effects, and then on average it lasts for around 3 hours. I don't know what drugs were at the party, but I wouldn't be surprised if ecstasy was one. Given that we know Natasha liked to indulge and her drink of choice, which she really liked, was Crown Royal, I would suspect on this night there would be people at that party who also drank heavily, and whether or not she indulged in any kind of drugs is unknown. But again, I wouldn't be surprised. And I wouldn't be surprised if anyone else there did that sort of thing either. Much of that night is unclear, and those who have information have not provided it. Being someone who likes to party, or even someone who may have a hot temper, is by no means an excuse for taking anyone's life. One of her dearest friends described Natasha as charismatic, fearless, honest, non-judgmental, and loyal. In the book Hiding in Plain Sight, Who Killed Natasha Atchely? A Justice for Natasha Atchely series, there will be a link to that book in the description. The opening statement says, in the early hours of May 3rd of 1992, Natasha was raped, kicked, and shot to death. No one should ever have to be put through this, and unfortunately, we do not have an autopsy because one could not be performed. So what happened? What do we know, or what do we think we know about that night? Allegedly, Natasha had something very important to tell her pregnant friend, but she never had a chance to do so. She never came home from the party she attended on May 2nd. According to an article published by the Polk County paper on Sunday, May 6th of 2012, the party Natasha attended was in the subdivision of 5 Acres and Independence. This is what those close to her believe the timeline of events were. At around 6 p.m., Natasha stopped by a friend's home to say hi. She spoke to her friend's mom and told her she was going to a party later at someone's home. On May 3rd, at 12:16 a.m., Natasha is seen on a video. She had a drink in her hand. At roughly 12:30 a.m., she left with a few people in her car. 4 people arrived at the Livingston Bank parking lot at 12:45 a.m. It is alleged that Natasha was quite drunk and that she had drank most of the bottle of Crown Royal. One of the guys got in her car and they went back to the party, and they arrived back there at around 1 a.m. At 3 a.m., it is said that Natasha got into an argument with several partygoers. Allegedly, she said that I am going to squeal on all of you mother effers. She got into her car and drove off. At around 10 a.m., a couple of people who lived in the 5 Acres area noticed a car was on fire. They contacted the police department. Earlier in the day, at around 6 a.m., they had gone fishing. At the time they left their home, they had not noticed anything unusual. Law enforcement arrived to the area where the car was located at around 11 a.m. The car was still hot to touch, and they ran the plates. It came back as Natasha's. Later that day at around 5, it is thought that Natasha's mother, Karen, filed a missing persons report. Natasha's car was still too hot to touch at this time. The following day, May 4th at 10:15 in the morning, Karen went to the impound lot to see if there was anything that she could salvage from Natasha's car. She had a set of spare keys. What she found is shocking, and I doubt anyone could fully recover from seeing this. Karen opened the trunk and found a charred human body inside of it. The medical examiner identified the remains to be Natasha. They also noted that there were no hand or foot bones inside the car. There have been several suspects, but no one has ever been charged with the crime. Someone out there knows what happened. They may have even witnessed the crime. While Natasha's mother was living, the only thing she had to hold on to about Natasha were the wires that had held Natasha's jaw together. Natasha had some sort of operation on her mouth earlier in her life. The metal, though, would not burn. Imagine seeing that on a daily basis and knowing the horrific pain that your child suffered. No parent ever gets past losing a child, but losing a child in such a horrific way had to have weighed heavily on Karen. The area where Natasha's car was found was not considered to be a crime scene at the time because no one knew anything had happened other than a car had been set on fire. From the information I have found, The area was not examined, and thus by the time they knew that a murder had happened, the scene was contaminated. What further complicates the crime is the lack of an autopsy. I am not sure what type, if any, information was obtained by examining the charred bones. Coming forward would bring closure to Natasha's relatives and her friends. This is a case I believe the Cold Case Foundation should look into. Chris McDonough, if you watch this video or hear about this case, I urge you to look into it.
19-year-old Natasha Atchely always attracted attention.
She was a cheerleader. She just was wild, and she loved to have a good time.
But the good time ended when the girl who grew up in Livingston went to a party in Shepherd and never came home.
Once you've seen your sister's burned remains, no, you never forget that.
The next morning, a mile down the road from the party, her car was found, and inside the trunk, what was left of her body, burned to bones.
They identified some of the accelerant as what they call drip gas.
Tom Branch is the retired San Jacinto County Chief Deputy, who believes the killer may have used oil and gas wells in the subdivision to finish the job.
You can actually get that product out of the oil well if you know what you're doing.
What made that party so hard to investigate?
With so many people there, you had to figure out who was there at the time.
A party investigators say mixed with drugs, alcohol, and powerful connections.
There were some folks at the party that were family members of some elected officials and others in Polk County.
Initially, investigators thought they solved this case. They arrested 2 people for beating up Natasha. They even had a witness who saw them. But the case fell apart when he changed his story. We tracked down the witness. He's in prison.
Because of your original statement, I think a lot of people wondered, why did you recant?
I can't say for 100%, but the statement that I gave was, yeah, I did see her, but with the amount of people standing around, it was quite a, it was a circle of people.
Anthony Cornelius is serving time for a separate crime, sexual assault of a child. The night of Natasha's murder, he admits he was on LSD.
I think it was down the road is where the gathering was. There was a bunch of people gathered up, like on that side of the edge of the woods.
He says he wasn't at the actual party. He was driving through the neighborhood because a friend called saying Natasha and another girl were going to fight. But he told us he can't say for certain who he saw.
Well, I hope that they come to find out the information, what I have given, would be correct. It would make me feel better.
Now, on the 25th anniversary of her murder, the Texas Rangers are in charge of the case. And this old investigator is still hopeful someone will come forward.
I feel comfortable that we talked to the person responsible during the course of the investigations.
I used to bring my boys out here when they were little. And
Natasha's family and friends still hold on to her mom's dying wish.
She said time and time again, this will be solved in your lifetime. And I strongly believe that.
If only this small town will share its secrets.
we just remember her in our hearts and let everybody else forget about what happened in our town? We've got to keep talking. We've got to keep praying. We've got to start hollering.
Investigators told us they feel like this case is solvable. The Texas Rangers are highlighting her murder on their website. They've even upped the reward. It's now just a matter of the right person coming forward.
If you have any information about what happened to Natasha, please contact Texas Crime Stoppers at 800-252-TIPS or the Texas Rangers at 800-346-3243. You can also submit a tip through the Texas Rangers Cold Case website. There will be a link to that in the description. If you've been following the Summer Wells case or the Gabby Petito case, these are new cases. Natasha Atchely was violently and brutally killed 29 years ago. Imagine following a case that long, and imagine if you were a relative or close friend who had no answers to what happened to Natasha. Natasha's case is in the top 12 of the Texas Ranger cold case investigations. Whatever information or evidence they have is not enough to bring closure, Please step up and put an end to the case so Natasha may finally rest in peace. Natasha, you are not forgotten and you are loved. There are people who are still fighting for justice. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time, and remember, you're beautiful and I love you.